My name is Roberta. I'm sitting in my wheelchair, feeling the cool night air on my face as my friend drives me away from the chaos. The events of tonight are still fresh in my mind, like a wound that won't stop bleeding. It all started at my brother Ryan's engagement party. The venue was a beautiful, rented space downtown, filled with string lights and well-dressed guests. Ryan's fiancée, Lily, had planned every detail to perfection. I was there, too, in my wheelchair, dressed as nicely as I could, trying to be as unobtrusive as possible. I was near the back of the room when Ryan came over. I thought he was going to say hello, but instead, he leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "You don't have to put on a show tonight, Roberta." No one's impressed. I was stunned and asked him what he meant. He stood up straight, his voice rising. People around us turned to look. In front of everyone within earshot, he said I had always faked the severity of my condition for sympathy. He claimed doctors had told them I could walk if I tried, that I was choosing to be in this wheelchair. Those words hit me like a punch in the gut. Before I could even find my voice, he grabbed my arm roughly and pulled me out of the chair. I fell to the floor, my hands hitting the hard surface. My legs were useless, and I couldn't stop the fall. The room went dead silent. I looked up and saw all those faces staring at me. Ryan was standing over me, and across the room, my father, Henry, just watched. He said loudly, "She's always been the family's biggest disappointment." My mother, Vera, turned her head away, not in shock but as if she agreed. I lay on the floor for what felt like forever. A kind-hearted woman I didn't know crouched down and asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer. I was shaking, not just from the pain of the fall but from the realization that this was the truth they had been hiding for years. 6 years ago, I was involved in a car accident. Ryan was driving. He walked away unscathed, while I ended up with a spinal cord injury. Ever since I woke up in the ICU, something changed in my family. My mother would look at me in the wheelchair with a tight jaw, as if I was an eyesore. My father would call me over-dramatic whenever I mentioned the costs of pain management or therapy. Ryan acted like he was the victim. I tried to convince myself that it was just grief, that they didn't know how to deal with what had happened. I moved into my own apartment, found a therapist, and made a few friends. I tried to let it go, thinking survival was more important than getting justice. But tonight, it all came crashing down. When the woman helped me back into my chair, I noticed people on their phones. I later found out someone had called 911. 15 minutes later, 5 police officers walked in. Their calm authority silenced the room immediately. Ryan saw them first. I watched his face go from confusion to irritation and then to a fear I had never seen before. One of the officers, a tall woman with short hair, came straight to me. She asked if I was Roberta. I said yes. She asked if I needed medical help. I told her I had fallen but was conscious. Then she turned to look at Ryan, who was backing away towards the gift table. Another officer approached my father and asked him to step aside. My father, who had just called me a disappointment, suddenly couldn't speak. He just stared at Ryan and the officer, opening and closing his mouth like a fish out of water. One of the guests, a man named Carl, turned out to be a retired insurance investigator. He was a colleague of Lily's father. Not only did he call 911, but he also showed the officers something on his phone. It turned out that the accident that put me in this wheelchair had a civil claim that was quietly settled. Carl had worked on a related file before retiring. The buried truth was in the original toxicology report from the night of the accident. Ryan had been severely impaired. My parents had signed a settlement on my behalf when I was still in the early stages of recovery and not fully aware. This settlement had a clause that prevented me from taking further legal action. I had no idea about this settlement or the clause. Within the hour, 2 things happened that I'll never forget. Ryan sat down near the entrance and didn't move. For the first time since the accident, he just sat there, looking at the floor. My mother, Vera, walked over to me. She stood in front of my wheelchair and looked at me for a long time. I could see something changing in her. She said quietly that she knew the truth all along. She had convinced herself that protecting Ryan meant protecting the family and that I was strong enough to handle it. I told her I wasn't okay. I told her I had spent 6 years trying to rebuild my life while they called me a fraud. I said being strong didn't mean I was okay with what they had done. I also told her that I was still talking to her because I believed the truth would always come out. The officers didn't make any arrests that night. They just took statements from Ryan, my father, Carl, and other witnesses, as well as from me. As my friend drove me away, the city lights passed by the window. I felt a strange sense of calm, like a door that had been locked for a long time was finally opening. My family had spent 6 years trying to make me doubt myself, but I was still here, and now, the truth was out. If this story touches you, if it makes you feel seen or reminds you that the truth will always prevail, please subscribe to this channel. There are more stories about people who were underestimated, silenced, and dismissed but found their way back. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay with us. You belong here.